Policy dialogue requires a systematic approach for the stakeholders to achieve their target. A four-step system will guide CSOs through a conflict-free and systematic dialogue process. The four steps encompass 1. How to set an agenda. 2. How to conduct the policy formation and negotiation. 3. How to implement the revised or new policy. And 4. How to have a plan to review the implemented policy. To set the agenda in the dialogue process with governments at local and national level to address a gap, a need, or an emergency in lacking policies and their implementation. The CSO identifies the issue like lack of food safety control for domestic use. It requires to study existing policies and laws and search for evidence how these policies have been implemented and what they lack. This can be done through conducting surveys, interviewing involved stakeholders, and doing a comprehensive desktop review of various policies. Important is to arm oneself with a powerful policy analysis based on facts, collaborating with coalitions of relevant CSOs and multi-stakeholders who are already engaged with these issues and have experience. To have a network and partners is key before going public to demonstrate powerful and strong coalitions. The next step is making the issues known through launching reports and presenting them to policymakers and relevant stakeholders like media houses. Media campaigns, press releases, information on social media, and public events contribute to sensitize the decision makers and the public, create awareness, and receive feedback. After setting the agenda backed by strong evidence, policy formation requires key skills in advocacy and lobbying to negotiate with policymakers to persuade them about your proposed reforms or intervention. During policy formation, a draft policy has to pass through the legislative process of the country, which requires several steps to become a law or a bylaw or a regulative national policy. The policy formation and negotiation stage can be long drawn out and therefore needs a budget and plan of action. The strategy which supports the program needs to be realistic, achievable, and relevant for all stakeholders and equipped with a detailed monitoring plan with good indicators how to track achievements in negotiation and formulation process. There is need for established networks with selected partners. The CSO, in collaboration with their partners, shall have a clear picture about the strategy, the program, and the action plan. The policy formation negotiation process requires the utmost support and goodwill of policymakers to ensure their collaboration during the process. The policymakers must accept the responsibilities they have for forming the policy, costing it, and organizing for its implementation. One will need a plan how affected communities will own the program after the implementation. After all these steps, you can start the implementation of the policy in a structured manner. For effective implementation of a new or a reviewed policy, law or bylaw, the policy organization component is a crucial part. This component requires the commitment of the government to implement the policy with a respective budget and equipped personnel. Most policies, laws, or programs fail and remain unimplemented because in the policy formation stage, the item of policy organization is ignored or overlooked. There are many ways for policies to be implemented, but the most important fact is that the implementation will reach the affected communities and create a change in the life of the citizens. For CSOs, the dialogue process has not ended. Then even if a policy has been approved and become a national and binding law, the effective implementation has to be reviewed in certain time period to monitor the impact for the citizens. Assessing the quality of the policy implementation is key part of policy dialogue. The implementation of such a law or policy requires to be tracked closely and ought to be reviewed after a certain time period to monitor the impact for the citizens. In a policy review, the CSO has to ask the question, how successfully was the policy implemented according to the set indicators? Has the implemented policy at national or local level reached the citizens and responded to their demands? How has the implemented policy changed the demand or situation compared to the time before? The review process requires that we evaluate the current situation after the implementation. Involving the communities in that review and evaluation is significant.